Welcome, everyone, to Give a Shift, the podcast you want to be listening to when you are ready to unleash your potential for profound personal growth. My name is Nancy Leeds Gribble, and I'm one of your co-hosts.
And I'm your other co-host, Alicia Ziegler.
And we welcome today Katelyn Johnson. Katelyn, we're so excited to have you here. I am going to read a little of Katelyn's bio. Katelyn is a spiritual life coach, Reiki practitioner, and sound healer who lives in Fort Collins, Colorado. She has a background in nutrition and exercise science. Katelyn's been in the coaching space for over 10 years and works primarily with women to help them find more purpose and freedom in their lives. Outside of coaching, Katelyn enjoys hanging out with her 3 fur babies and training for ultra runs, which I immediately connected to right there. So as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, I see what's happening. Anyway, welcome, Katelyn. We're going to turn it over to you to expand on that and introduce yourself a little bit more.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. It was fun to meet you, Alicia, officially in person on your first ultra.
My first ultra.
Love that. So I got into this space through group fitness and personal training, back in college when I was getting my nutrition and exercise science degrees. And throughout working with people, I realized I absolutely love general population, specifically women. And the conversations were always the best part. You'd have the intake, someone would tell you their goals. Maybe they was a little superficial or they didn't know you well enough. So they'd kind of give a canned answer of what they wanted. And then by session 3 or 4, they're telling you their life story, their stressors, the real underlying goal. And it was those conversations. It was just an hour long while I'm standing there counting people's reps on my fingers. Now we do this exercise. Oh, your time's up. Now we're doing this exercise. But having a real conversation. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is far more impactful for me. I love exercise, but that's where it's at for me. And that was kind of how I decided to make that transition into life coaching and have those real conversations with people outside of a gym. And then through going my own healing and spiritual journey, I was like, Reiki, what's that? I heard the word somewhere. I was like, I have this strong feeling I need to know more about what that is. I'm reaching out to people. I was like, do you know someone who teaches this? Can I get what do I do? Zoomed through my courses. As soon as I was eligible to take another one, I was like, I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to do this. And the same thing for sound healing. I was like, I'm really interested in this. I need to find someone who's teaching and I want to learn from them. I want to do this. And so much of it was for my own growth. I was like, I was like, I want to learn this for me. But now it's all stuff that I use with my clients and in my day-to-day. And that's how I got there. It all started out for me and just this deep curiosity of being a forever student and acquiring all the knowledge.
Totally. It's like therapy. I always tell people, they go, oh, you don't train anymore. And I'm like, no, because nobody really wants to work out. They just want to chat. So I'm here to work you out a la we're joining the Navy SEALs tomorrow, or we can put a pin in it and go have coffee and talk. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it is funny, right? When you're in the training profession, and there's a freedom, I think, and you were talking about working with women, it becomes a safe space for them, right? You know them intimately, they're trying to fix their body, but at the same time, they're starting to share with you because they're getting to know you intimately. And obviously you felt the spark, oh, I want to go deeper. And I think we talk about it all the time. Alicia and I don't know if she told you, when we first started the podcast, we were like, we're going to talk about nutrition. And then we're like, we love mindset. We love inspiration. We love to share the how-to of nutrition and exercise and things, but we also, we get into that. So when you made your shift from your exercise, personal training career, and what are some things that you really noticed were common threads that women were having in their conversations with you that led you to really fine tune it to their purpose and their freedom?
It wasn't a direct shift over. So it was again, kind of through my own journey and losing that purpose to come back to it, to realize like it took me so many years to do this for myself. I can help people do it faster. So in terms of like, thank goodness I was in a good position during a pandemic. I left gyms in like 2018. I took a big kid job and ended up getting in tech and working in an office, which is wildly different from a gym, and kind of lost all of that connection with fitness.
Yeah.
For a while, I loved what I was doing. It was a new challenge. It was fun. And then I did it for so long, and it didn't really feel like it fit my bigger purpose in life. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
I was doing software implementation primarily in the beer industry. So I was like, cool, these businesses are doing well, but how does selling beer to the general population help me
Let
feel
me
like
thrive.
I'm still alive? Yeah, I was like, there's a disconnect here for me personally. And I was like, I can be doing so much more. I have other gifts and talents. I saw the end result of what people were doing when it was within fitness,
Yeah.
and I missed that in my corporate job. So it was me finding, I was like, I need to do something more purposeful. And I was like, I desire to help people again, and coming back to that really like brought me back to this space. And that's where I shifted. So I didn't go from gyms to life coaching. I went to a corporate space to life coaching.
Yeah.
But do you think that that's like, I think that's one of those things where, have you always been a really intuitive person, or sometimes does it take that lily pad of being there to all of a sudden get the download of like, oh yeah, this feels really icky and is not in alignment with who I am? Or are you one of those people that like jumps the lily pad and already knows, and like gets the download and you're like, yeah, but I gotta do this for a little bit?
No, the lily pad was definitely there first. I think I've always been intuitive, but I've always been intuitive with enough hindsight.
Cool.
So like my spiritual awakening started in like 2020, or maybe September of 19 when my uncle died, but I probably didn't really connect those dots until things started to shut down and I was doing more online groups because I found a coach that I'd worked with for a few years now, but it was my first introduction to her. She was doing new moon and full moon things like every 2 weeks. And so I started doing that in like January or February of 2020, and then just dove into some of the spiritual work she was doing throughout that year. So that's when I was really picking up on how intuitive I was, but I can look back at things on my childhood or later in life and be like, oh, it was there, but I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
So I had to go through the experience myself to like be in tune to it, to wake it up, to figure it out for myself, to then help other people figure it out.
Yeah.
But I will say something that I think that I know about you is that I think that you're a very voracious person when it comes to curiosity. Like I feel like when I hang out with you, I'm like, Kaylin's the kind of person that you want to hang out with on a car ride because she's like a thesaurus. Like you'll be driving along and you're like, what is that tree? And she knows. And then she'll tell you exactly how the wind blew and the seed made it there, and how the sun, the moon, and the stars aligned 37,000 years ago. Like Kayla just
were we in the same car ride? I don't know what we're doing.
You don't remember? But I feel like you're one of those people who's really has like a really big curiosity. And I've wondered if that's been like a really prevalent, like that's kind of what drove you a lot. Or you had mentioned your uncle. Was it like more of a loss thing or a trauma born thing?
I think it was kind of a trauma triggered thing. Like there was a lot of sadness and grief there, and learning how to process it kind of woke me up to like more intuitive things in my life. But being a forever student has definitely been there. That was an identity piece for me. Like when I finished my 2 bachelor's degrees, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. That was kind of a shift for me. I didn't have a job lined up. I had just recently ended a relationship. I didn't really have a lot of ties. I was living in Lincoln, Nebraska at the time, and I was like, I don't know what to do with myself, and I don't know how to not be a student, because at that time I was like, I've been a student since I was 5 years old.
Right.
And that was honestly like a big push to go get my grad degree. I was like, I'm going to buy myself 2 more years as a student so I don't lose this identity, because who am I if I'm not a student? I started looking at graduate degrees. I was in nutrition, but a little bit burnt out on it. I was like, I'm more interested in exercise science. Like I'm looking for a school that has a good exercise science degree that I can do dietetics afterwards, because at the time that's what I thought I wanted. And I can go anywhere. Where do I want to be? And that's how I ended up in Colorado. And I got this really awesome degree. Like, of course, it all works out intuitively and divinely guided. Like, my master's is in the social psychology of sport and physical activity, which is a lot around motivation and figuring out like kind of your purpose and what do you want to do and how are you going to do it and like how do you get out of your own way. So it was framed in a way of like working with sports teams, like visualizing that home run, or how are you crossing that finish line, or how do you turn out the crowd that's yelling at you, and like focus on your goals. But you can apply it to any person at any stage in life or like any category of life. And so it really set me up for success in what I'm doing. But at the time I was like, it's exercise science and it's what I know, it's what I'm doing. And it just beautifully benefited me moving forward.
That is definitely full circle. Yeah, 100%. Like, I love it. And so do you primarily, you work with women athletes, women of all areas of life, wherever they're at, or is it a very specific like niche or something that you work with?
I attract a lot of athletes and people, like at least people who are active, because within my own running, like so much of what I'm talking about is what I'm doing. And so that's the kind of person I attract, but I don't necessarily market it as like, I will only work with athletes.
Yeah.
How did you even,
go ahead.
No, I'm like, I just want to know how she even got started on the ultra thing. Like, how did the ultra train even, you were like, I can't be a student and go to school for 12 hours a day, like Alicia. Trust me. Still trying to get my PhD so I can just be like, I'm busy for 6 years. But like, how do you, so did you like, if I can run for 12 hours a day, like,
yeah, that was its own evolution. So honestly, when my running started, I was tricked into it. In high school cross country, like I don't remember how my English teacher found this out, but it was maybe the 3rd week of school. I'm like walking to class one day. He's like, "You're a runner, right?" And I was like, sure. Like, I did track in middle school. I used to race people on the playground. Yeah, I guess I'm a runner. It's like, you need to go talk to the cross country coach who was like a U.S. history teacher, and like didn't know him at the time. So I walk into his office. He's got like his white shirt all buttoned up. He's got a tie and he's terrifying. Once I got to know him, like that's laughable, but he was so intimidating when I walked into his classroom. He's like, "Heard you want to join the team." He's like, "Bring your shoes. Practice is on Monday." I was like, okay. Okay, I guess I'm on the team now. And so
that's crazy.
I'd never run more than a mile in my life. It's Nebraska heat in August. I have missed 2-a-days. I've missed summer running. I've missed the first 2 weeks of the school season. I show up to practice and I had to run 3 or 4 miles. And I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
It's August in Nebraska, so it's probably we're running right after school. It's probably 80 plus degrees and just as equal humidity. And I was miserable. I didn't like it and I was too scared to quit. So I stuck it out for the whole season. And the team was great and I loved the people and I started to get used to it and I came back year after year. So then I was on the team for all 4 years. When I got to college, I didn't know what I was. It was a weird realization. I was like, I've been exercising and running for 4 years. I actually have no idea how to do any of this, which is painful being in an exercise science major. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, oh, someone has told me what to do every single day or every single workout forever. My mom asked if I would do some marathon training with Team in Training. Leukemia Lymphoma Society at the time. My grandpa had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was like, I will agree to do this if you do all the raising of the money and the talking to the people, and I'll go run. Deal. Yeah. So I ran my first marathon as a freshman in college, and I enjoyed it. Kept running through college, but I got hurt in all the other ones because school was getting harder. It's hard to do organic chemistry and anatomy and physiology and find times for long runs. So I was undertrained and got hurt and backed it way off. So to get to where I'm actually answering your question, I start this job in 2018 and the guy that has a desk next to me goes, "Hey, I heard you're a runner." Again, I don't know how he found out I was a runner, but he goes, "I'm training for this 100-mile run. Would you be willing to pace me?" I was like, I don't know what pacing is. And that's a really long, I was like, tell me more about this because you just spoke a foreign language to me. And I was like, you do 30 miles. Like, first off, I can't do 30 miles. Thank you. I haven't run a marathon in 8 years at this point, and thank you for thinking I can do 30. I can't run that far. He goes, no. You don't run the whole way in ultras. He's like, by the time you see me, I'm going to be exhausted. He's like, you make sure I drink water, eat food, stay on the trail, like talk me out of my hallucinations. I was like, oh, okay. I babysit you while we hike together. I can do this for 30 miles.
So what you're saying is I can cut back on these runs that I've been pacing myself for you. I've been training to pace Katelyn for a 250 miler. And every time I'm out there for like 6-7 miles, I'm like, should I really keep this speed? I mean, I can still talk if I have to. I haven't had any water. Am I going to be okay to help? And then I'm like, okay, Katelyn, I did 6. She's like, I'm back for my 14. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to die.
No, there's so much like walking and hiking, and like at any point in time, it's like you're just going to be X number of miles more fresh than I am, so you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of it. So that's, I mean, full circle again too. It's kind of just like your job, right? Like it all comes down to that organic support. Like it's not necessarily what you're doing, it's the support that you're getting to kind of coax you into getting to that next level, finishing, succeeding.
Exactly. It's like getting out of your own way, or the stories you make up in your head. Like I came into that situation going, nope, just straight out the gate. I can't do this. He's like, let me give you more information. You absolutely can. He's like, I don't know you, and I know you can do this. I was like, okay, thank you. I feel like that's kind of what I'm doing with my clients. They're like, here's my big dreams, and I can't reach it because of X, Y, D. I was like, I'm going to sit here today and tell you that you can reach those dreams, and then like, let's get you out of your own way. Yeah. So that was training for these races too. Yeah, that was how I got into it. I went to a few of his races. He got into a couple hundreds, and I was there to pace, and just being around the people and the support, the crews, the aid station workers. After 2 of those, I decided, I've got the itch. I'm curious to do this for myself. Let me start training for these races to run them myself and see what it's like on the other side of the fence, really.
Yeah. So you're watching and going, wait a minute, I want to do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
It was so fascinating. Like, think of a marathon runner. Like, you have an image in your head immediately of like what this person's looks like general build, body build, and you probably think of the people that you know that are winning these races or setting records. And then you go to a 100-mile race and you're at an aid station, you're looking around, you're like, this is the most normal looking group of people I've ever seen in my life. You're like, I can't tell a volunteer from a runner, from like a crew member. Like, everyone just looks like regular old humans here. And it's so interesting to get to that level where when you're running that hard, it's so much mindset.
Yeah.
Like, there's stuff you're training for your body, but there's a certain point where it's just all in your head and you're going to decide you can do it and keep putting one foot in front of the other, or you're going to give up, but you're probably giving up in your head before your body.
Yeah.
When you're at that low point or you're giving up in your head, do you have a go-to or a story or a low point where you've already I've already been so low at rock bottom that in this race, like that's just not going to happen. Like I already know while here I can keep going.
Yeah, there's kind of twofold to that. I have to come back to my why. It's like, why did I want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then remember, why am I here? Is it to have fun? Is this not fun? How can I make it more fun? And I guess that brings up another story. In one of the hundreds, the first one I did not finish. I remember being at mile 70. I think I told you this when we were in the Grand Canyon because it was a low point. I was like, I remember being at mile 70 and like crying tears into a Dixie cup of coffee because I wanted to be done. I was so far from it. The sun was coming back up and I was just kind of like angry about it. And when I kept moving, I started to do the times. I think I had a pacer helping me do the calculations. Like, am I facing a cutoff time? Can I even finish this race? What would it take? And I realized that I could go about a minute faster for what I was doing. And that's all it would take. And I was like, cool, a minute faster is not that bad. And I was like, but it's a minute faster for every mile for 30 miles. And we're looking at 10 hours. I was like, that doesn't sound fun. And then I heard myself think that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that doesn't sound fun. That means there's a piece of this that I still find fun. I was like, that's an interesting realization. Like, at this low point, I'm finding fun.
I enjoy this pain.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I enjoy this, but I wouldn't enjoy that. I was like, interesting. I just learned something new about myself.
Yeah, that regret, I think, of the not finishing. Like, I know that we were having that point when I had spoken previous on an episode of this, that it just didn't go how we thought and how I planned. And so of course my expectation was one thing and the reality was another. And it was literally like, just go one step in front of the other. That is it. You came here to finish, not to set a world record, just finish, whatever that looks like. If you decide in 2 years from now, you've got to come back and do it again, then, you know, you do it again. But for now, the whole point was just finish. And yeah, we talked about all my colorful language, my breakdowns, and then you know, and a lot of the time you do have to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough.
Absolutely.
Right? Like sometimes that breaking point is really where all the light comes in.
Yeah.
And I think people are really afraid to go there, but you're like, it's so, you know, it's like beauty in the break. Like it's so beautiful to almost get to that point of like that pure exhaustion and that upset and disbelief that this is actually happening. And then you finish and you're like, that was so glorious. I mean, did we not cry for almost 36 hours and we got in the car and we're like, so what's our next one?
Yeah.
Like we hadn't even eaten yet.
It's like having babies, like the minute you're like, ah, and then it's like, when am I going to have my net? Like you're just, we're dying. And then you're like, oh, I'm ready. You're going to have 10 now. Like, whatever.
Yeah. I feel like that low point kind of leads me to this other story. I remember being on a run with a guy I was training with. So we're on a work trip and I think we were in Kansas. It was raining sideways. It was cold. We were up on an old trail track, railroad track that they'd made into a trail. So there's no shelter. And it was just one of the most miserable runs I've ever been on. And we're headed back towards the car and I'm just like staring down because it's raining in my face and thinking like, I just want to quit. All I want to do is quit. And then like walking myself through is like, cool. How are you going to do that? It's the two of you here. You're headed back towards the car. If you slow down and walk, it'll take longer to get there. So you really can't do anything other than continue to go forward. And as I'm like, about ready to cry at that reality, I'm just like ruminating all this stuff in my head. And I just hear him yell over the wind and rain. He's like, I think we're training for the hard part. And that one statement has stuck with me for probably the last 10 years or however long it's been.
Wow.
It's like, I'll get to that point in the race and I was like, this is miserable. Whatever the story that comes with it. It's like, I'm here. I'm at the low point. This is not inherently fun. All type 1 fun gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but I trained for this. I trained for the hard part. I know I can get through this because I've gotten through the hard part before. And that's when I usually start to shift my mindset a little bit. And it's like, what can I do to make this more fun? How can I make this more enjoyable? Like, what game can I play? And it's like, can I get to that tree or that bridge? Or can I start playing with the times to my next aid station and take 30 seconds off my next mile? It's like, if I take 30 seconds off, can I take 35? And like,
right. Yeah.
breaking it down into these tiny bite-sized pieces and then making it a game and making it fun, which is what I do with all my clients and their goals. It's like, where do you want to be? Where are you at now? What's in between? And what does it take to get there? And then breaking all of what does it take to get there into steps and then making that fun so that it gets done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the gap, right? Bridging the gap from where you are to where you want to be. But you have to really know where you want to go. What you were talking about, your why earlier. Like I say it, Alicia says it all the time. Listen, people can come to us like, you know, can you train me? Can you help me lose weight? We can do whatever, but they're like, can you guarantee results? And it's like, no, never, because it's on you. And the thing that we've seen over and over and over is if you don't have a deep rooted why, you're doing something when push comes to shove. I don't even say when it's hard, because sometimes it's just, you're not motivated. It's not really hard. You're just not motivated. But when that moment comes, if you're like, it doesn't matter, you'll cave. Like people will cave. A bikini thing to get into like a bathing suit in the summer is not as much as, I mean, I'm not talking like fitness comps and things like that, but right. For the general population, it's like, I want to look good and get in a bikini over the summer. That's not as sustainable as I'm a single mom. My son is young. I better get my acting gear and I better be healthy because that kid needs to have a mom who's around for a long, long time. It's a wildly different why. And I think probably what you do, if I'm hearing correct, is you help people uncover kind of their why of life, like their purpose. Why do they want to do certain things? Why are they thinking certain things? And then help them start working towards them.
Yeah, absolutely. And like one of the programs I've created, because I went through it myself, was when you lack that why, you kind of start like whatever set of feelings starts to come in. And if you don't want to deal with that and you start to want to numb out, like I turned to alcohol at a too young of an age. But there was it was a maladaptive coping mechanism,
Yeah.
and it was a way of numbing. Like I didn't have a good why, I didn't have a lot of purpose. I was a little bit lost, and instead of asking myself why and what can I do and what do I want to do,
Mhm.
I was drinking. And then I was in a lot of social situations where it was normalized to the point that it like continued to get more out of control
Yeah.
in its own sense. And so to put those together with the people I work with and what I've created is this program to help people like not eat like find the why for themselves, but also to ask themselves like, why am I drinking? Am I happy when I'm doing this? Is it because of feelings that I don't want to feel? Or is it purely social and I enjoy having a drink?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of those middle grounds in between, like finding your why. It's like if you're not even searching for that purpose, what are you doing in between? And is that healthful? And is that going to move you forward? Or is it definitely keeping you stagnant and sad
Yeah.
because you don't have that strong why?
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
As my pastor would say, what are you doing? Or why aren't you getting off your blessed assurance, putting it in motion?
I love that.
And it's true. I think that's kind of one of the reasons that we started this more so than anything was one, we wanted people to see like, look, you can be doing life and then realize like, this isn't what I wanted to be doing and really go for it and have your whole life change. And then everything kind of lines up for you, or know that there's absolutely resources available to you for people who have had said experiences. Because I think that's the thing too, is people are constantly like, well, who's been there? Or how do I do this? Or what is my first step? It's like, hopefully this is a resource where you're like, these are the people that can help you with your first step.
Yeah.
Right. And you know that you have someone that's, we call it the been there, done that. It's like, we feel like we've been there, we've done that. So like you don't have, just come to us. We'll tell you how to screw it up and then get over it way faster.
Yeah. Yeah. We always say, we'll shorten the curve for you. We're going to shorten the curve.
And then we're going to bring on all our friends that have shortened their curve too, so that you don't have to be in that spot. And I think that's, I think that the drinking, and it's great to have you on in January because dry January is so important. I had been in a relationship where someone was drinking avidly, and I was trying to partake after years and years of not drinking because I just don't really care, to be honest with you. And because you know me, I want to be able to like go for my run. So if I'm not in bed feeling good and now I'm interrupted, I'm all cranky. And so I was trying to partake to be in it and do it. And I was like, I don't actually really enjoy it. But I was trying to convince myself that I was. But it was such a deterrent from who I was really aligned with, overall, the bigger picture of what I wanted. And it's just been, since having been out, I'm like, wow, I just haven't eaten months since June. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't, I can keep it in check. And it's one of those things where if I really, really wanted to, I could, but I just choose not to based off, like you said, like what is the deeper rooted sense of why you want to do it versus why you don't want to do it, and being okay with the fact that you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
It's just as cool to say no as it is if you want to be the person that says yes. But I didn't really.
Yeah, so much of that is like your people and your environment. I've learned that along the way. Again, like let me help you shorten that curve. But all the stories in my head was like, oh, I'll be judged if I don't do this, or like, will I lose my friends because they're drinking, or what would they ask me why I'm not, and like what do I want to tell them I'm struggling with or that I just don't want to. And that feeling of like I might be socially isolated if I don't want to drink was another reason I created the program. Like what I've gone through and found out for myself, when I felt like it was too much and I should do something different, I started looking for help and couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, there was AA and other stuff like that was all very sobriety is the way, it's the only answer, count your days, take your coins type approach to it. I'm like, no, I enjoy drinking. I just don't want to drink as much as I do.
Yeah.
Like, the shift needs to happen. And so I had to create this because I didn't want to be, or I like also knew I would never be someone that would never drink again.
Right. Same.
And that was the only answer I could ever find out there. But then through going through that and working on myself, I actually drink way less than I ever thought I would have. And it's that same thing. I got to that point, I'm like, I could. And I was like, I don't really want to, even if it's here in front of me or if I'm with people. And through making these changes in my life, I found out that I'm hanging out with far more people that are drinking less themselves. But I couldn't have like imagined that for myself when I started the change. And that felt too big. But it's interesting to be sitting here today going, I drink way less than I ever thought I would, even when I started my journey to drink less.
But I love it that you actually have a program that meets people right there. Honestly, it's not where I thought our topic was going today. But I really love it because I do think it's the same when we're talking to people about trying to help them get healthier and eat well. And it's like, we have to get rid of the all or nothing mentality. And I do think around alcohol, there is a very all or nothing mentality. And it kind of sucks for people that are like, I don't have a problem, or I actually enjoy it, but I'm drinking my emotions. I'm drinking these other things, like people that eat their emotions. So I need help with this, but why do I have to give up can I, try? And I mean, sometimes you have to remove it for a while, but then maybe, and slowly bring it back in or slowly reduce it. But I think it's a great thing because I have a lot of people that do. It is the first question with weight loss. And listen, we know nutrition, we know it's a toxin. I know all the things. I drink, right? I'm not a heavy drinker at all. But I mean, when I want to drink on the weekend, I want one. And I'm like, yes, I'm fully aware. I'm fully aware of what it is. But what I have in my life is not anything that's going to harm me. And so it's the biggest question people have. Do I have to give up alcohol forever? It's like fitness became AA. And it's like,
no, if you want to have a glass of wine, I always tell people, earn it.
Yeah.
Just earn it. Like if you're going to have a drink at this party and you're concerned, then go put in your 3-4 miles and earn the 2 drinks. Right? Like
eat your protein.
Your while.
Yeah. Drink your water between drinks and eat your protein. But it's great. So I'm curious what your program is.
So my program's called Healing the Hangover. It's a 6-month container that, like you said, does a little bit of that. Take it away for a little bit so you can start to see how you feel and start to notice those changes in yourself. Like one of the first things you'll probably notice would be the sleep, the mood, the more energy. And one of the reasons I did that within a container in a group program versus one-on-one is to get a bunch of people together who are at the same stage. Because that's truly one of the hardest things is like, if you have a group of friends and you feel like it's going to be isolated, but you can be with another group of people all going through the same thing, then when you have those check-ins and the accountability, you're like, oh, my day was XYZ, and someone else goes, mine was too. And all of a sudden you're just not alone in this. Like that's where the magic actually happens, is having that community and not being alone. And then truly it becomes more about like your self-worth and your emotions and why you're doing it in the first place. And I think you touched on this. It's not necessarily for addiction or dependency. It's for I'm choosing to drink my feelings. Like I'm numbing, and I coach it through the lens of alcohol, but it can also be done with food or any other vice that you are just overusing as a way to divert your emotions.
Yeah.
Like I'm putting myself, as I'm going through this program this time, I'm putting myself through it with sugar, because that's kind of my next big thing is I stress eat. I learned that in college and it got a little bit better, and it's gotten a little bit worse. So like if I'm going through these principles and it works on everything, I was like, let me run myself through my program again with sugar. And that way I was like, I can help more people when it's this. Because, there'll be people who will see me, they're like, whatever, I don't have a drinking problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hard things. I was like, where was I at when I needed this most? It would have been really hard to tell me to do a program to reduce my drinking, because I would have told you I didn't have a problem. And I had a hard time when I was creating, like sneaking in the how do you stop part in there. Because I know if someone had told me to just quit even for a while, like I would have had so much resistance around that. But when I finally did, I was like, I think within a few days, I was like, oh my God, I'm sleeping better. Who knew?
Yeah. But that's the part of everybody has to have their own journey. Everybody has to have their own personal rock bottom. And it's, it's hard when you're watching somebody, whether it's them getting unhealthier by the day, whether it's them drinking, whether it's them in a terrible relationship, when you're watching somebody in that, all you can do is be on guard for when they're ready. But like dragging them and trying to figure out how you can help them in those moments, it rarely ever sustains and is exhausting for all parties involved.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great. And I think it plays right into like the shifts sometimes, right? Depending on if it's an addiction or what it is. Yeah, you need a big shift. Sometimes you do. Like you need to cut it out. And then you can figure where it goes from there. Sometimes you just need the small ones, right? And it's, how do you feel? Why is that the go-to or the food or anything like that? And so it sounds like, so I know you have that program, and then you do the sound healing and the Reiki, and that's something within the program, or those are different things that you offer, and like who comes for those?
It's a little bit of both. As part of the program, you get meditations and sound healings, and we'll do that stuff on group calls and sit together to go through that healing, because we are healing in emotional things. Like ultimately, like the reason any person started drinking is because of probably one single incident, but maybe a series of things from their past. So it is part of a healing journey that we're all going through together as participants in my program. And then I offer those things as separate services as well. So if someone just wanted a healing session or healing package, kind of like you'd get a massage if you were regular doing that. I was like, I have a 6-month Reiki program. It's like you get one session a month for like less than if you just bought a one-off session.
Yeah.
I get that regular clearing, like clear up your chakras. If there's things you're going through, just help move those out. Like kind of get yourself back in a good energetic balance the way you would take care of your physical body.
Yeah. I love sound healing. I love the aesthetics of looking at all the things. I just think that right there is so pretty. That's why when I see all the sound healing bowls, it just instant relaxes me. And then I don't think a lot of people really are aware until they experience it, how powerful the sounds are, like how they are transformative. I really believe for whatever, like it almost is like they find the energy that you need and kind of get in there and go, okay, like the different sounds may radiate. That's my take on it, because whenever I've been to a few, everybody has like a different takeaway. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I heard like, this is what I was feeling and that. And so it's always interesting. I mean, had I thought about it and had I known, I would have said, let's do a little sound healing. That's for the next time.
Close your eyes and do a meditation.
I'm just curious, did you go with life coaching first and then added those on? Let me add some of these kind of accessory things into the practice for full body healing?
Yeah, I started with the life coaching because I had kind of that talk therapy-esque strategy that's what I was doing with personal training clients during their sessions, and just conversation always turned to be something deeper. Yeah. So I had that going, and that was how I started. And then it was for me going through my own healing journey. I was aware that I could only meet my clients where as deep as I've taken myself.
Yeah.
If I want to help people as much as I can, I have to continue to help myself go further so I can help other people go further. And then it was learning about those healing modalities. I was like, teach me about Reiki. I think I need to know this. And then I learned it. I helped myself. I was like, now I feel good at helping other people. I'm going to add this in as something I can do. Like, I'm interested in sound healing. I want to learn this for myself. And now I can do this for other people. And everything evolved from there. Like, I also have a breathwork certification. And I think
curiosity, she's at the source, but she doesn't think she is. She knows all the things about all the things.
I guess prior to that, I did my yoga training too. Again, forever student. I'm just collecting all of
Let's pan over to the wall and see the certificates. Go ahead, girl. Don't be shy.
You definitely, yes. I think I get it's the learning, and it's addictive learning, right? Like once you know one piece of it, you're like, oh, I want to know another piece and another piece, and for your own well-being, and then obviously for your clients. So we have women listening. You work with women. What would be like some takeaways they could have from today, like if they're maybe pondering all the things. I don't want to just say whether they're pondering, should I not drink? Am I drinking too much? Am I, do I need help with my food? Or just kind of going all the way back to the beginning of, I feel like I'm stuck in my life. Like, what are some questions they could ask themselves, or, what little takeaways might they get?
I think it all kind of starts with the behaviors. So if it wasn't alcohol, if there was a behavior that they're aware of, they're like, I'd kind of want to change this. And maybe it's, I live in a cluttered house, or I'd like to run more. And it's the why behind it. Like, why have I not done this already? And it's maybe like journal on that, start to ask yourself, what's stopping me there? Because when you go from that behavior to the reason or the emotion behind it, I'll dig a little bit deeper into, well, where did this come from? What am I afraid of? And get to that, like, hold up or stop. So I think the journaling and the awareness, and then maybe the tracking of that emotion. It's like, oh, well, if it's shame or something, like embarrassment, like, then kind of aside from that is, well, if I feel this other places, what do I do? And maybe that's where someone turns to like sugar or alcohol.
Yeah. Behavior is a really good indicator of what you're doing and what you're not doing.
Yeah. Because I think
it's so actionary, right? It's like, if you're being inactive, not cleaning your house, or you're indulging in something and taking an action of consuming too much, whatever it is, then you basically are stating how you're living your life. And in that, you can usually sit back and put it out in front of you, or like you said, journal it and see it, and then say, yeah, these are the things that I'm not jiving with anymore, and I really want to.
Yeah. I think a really common one that I didn't mention is overwhelmed. It's like, well, then when I feel overwhelmed, what do I do? It's like, I just sit down and watch Netflix. I do nothing. Because that watching 3 episodes of something makes me feel better, until I then look around my house and realize that I still have done nothing. But, in that hour and a half that I watched 3 episodes, like, I didn't feel overwhelmed. So I think when people,
I just numbed.
Exactly. It's one more numbing. Yeah. And I think if you don't have that why or that purpose in your life, and that feels too far away, that single behavior of like, this is something I would like to change about myself. Like, what behavior it is. And I was like, why haven't you changed it yet? What's stopping you? And going from there. I
have one coachy type question. Okay. So let's say I come to you and I think that A is my behavior. Okay. Mm-hmm. How often or likely is it that you usually will let them tell you that it's A and you're like, it's actually B, C, and D? Like, do you kind of see it a little bit and then allow them to lay it out before you over time? Or are you usually like, I know you think it's A, but let me just like get to B, because B is really the true statement of like, do people kind of overshadow what they think it may be? Or are they usually pretty blunt with you? Because I always found like it took a while for people to almost be completely frank and honest, almost like they had to like talk until they realized they told you the answer. Or do most people come to you and they know?
It's a little bit of both. Cool. I think everyone does have that knowing inside themselves, but they're not going to say it. Like, I think there was situations when we were hanging out or like in the car where you came up with something. You're like, well, I don't know because here's the story. Mm-hmm. And like, you said it, you heard yourself say it, right? Right after you said, I don't know, you said the thing.
Yeah, totally. That's why I'm asking, because I think it's so prevalent, right?
Yeah. Like within coaching conversations, I think that's why it's so important to work with someone, because people do have a really good understanding, but it's probably a little bit more buried than they realize. So when someone comes to me and they'll tell me their story, if they're really hung up on it's A, I need to change A, it's meeting them where they're at. If they're not in a place to hear anything about B, C, and D, right, we're focusing on A. We're gonna move through A. That's important to them. They couldn't do anything. Even if I told them B, C, and D, they're like, okay, cool, but A. Yeah. So there's no point in like pushing that. Yeah. Meeting where they're at. And then some of it's like B. I'm like kind of planting that seed of like, maybe this, or like asking questions like, I hear you on A, but what are your thoughts on C?
Cool.
And then see where they're at. Because like you always have to meet people where they're at no matter what. And I think there is that knowing, but sometimes it takes looking at A or starting to work on A. And at some point they're going to go, oh my God, did you know about C and D? I was like, yep, right off the bat. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Meeting them where they're at. That's the only way, really.
Then again, it comes to personal training. That's the A is like, I want to lose 10 pounds. And then C or D is like, well, I want to lose 10 pounds because my daughter's getting married, and D is there's going to be a grandchild, but I'm going to come in and tell you it's the 10 pounds.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
so much more behind that.
Yeah.
You won't actually say it.
Yeah. I agree.
It's good because it's always just a bag of driving force anyway. So it's okay. We'll just acknowledge it, have it, and then bring it up when we need it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, fantastic. I love it. I know we could chat forever. Where can our listeners find you?
I am most prevalent on Instagram. So I am Katelyn Opal. I'm on TikTok as well. Right now, that's just a lot more tarot readings. I'm building that up too. But my website is KatelynOpal.com. But the best way to actually reach me is to message me on Instagram.
Okay. And we'll make sure, if you make sure we have all that information, we will put it all in the show notes. And you mentioned a program you have. Do you have anything? I know it's a group program, or anything starting up soon that you would want to mention, or?
Yeah, I'm doing another launch of Healing the Hangover. That'll come in middle of March. I'm going to do that right after St. Patty's Day.
Yeah. You're going to let everybody get through dry January, realize 1 month didn't work.
And I didn't want anyone to be like, oh, I can't start beginning of January because like I don't want to miss St. Patty's Day. I was like, I'll catch you right after like one of your excuses.
You saw the little eye roll though, right?
Well, no, it's like that's something I would have said. I think, yeah, that would have been 100% one of my excuses in the past if you'd approached me. So I was like, again, meeting people where they're at. I was like, I'm going to start after this big drinking holiday. It'll be good.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, I'm very excited. And like I said, we'll put everything in the show notes. And I thank you very much. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I'm like already thinking like some clients that I have that I may need to like send your way. So yeah, I might do a sound healing. I love the sound healing. I really do. I think it's beautiful, really. Does it calm? I mean, I find it calming. Anyway, I'll move on. Thank you very much for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
He's going to find you and you can just have your own.
Yes. I have to remember podcast. We're on a podcast.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I better go train for Katelyn's 250. Bye, guys.
Alicia's out.
I gotta go. I'm a pacer.
She probably will. You know Alicia, right? She probably will hang up and start training like right away.
Trust me, I only run because like I'm like, oh, Katelyn needs me in May, the first week of May. I'm gonna turn a whole new year over and get older, and I'm still gonna be like, I can do this.
You can. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, beautiful friend.
And, please like, share, comment with our podcast. That's the only way we can stay going. We would like to thank our sponsor, Purium. Both Alicia and I, we say our podcast and our bodies are powered by Purium. The quality of the life you lead is equal to the quality of the food you eat. And they make it very simple. So we are blessed to have that. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you.